Story 1. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, I have a story that's guaranteed to make you think twice about looking in the mirror late at night. It's a story about reflections, and how sometimes they're not exactly what they seem. So, turn down the lights and let's dive in. This happened when I was in college. I was renting this tiny, rundown studio apartment. It wasn't much, just a single room with a bed, a desk, and a closet. The bathroom was the only separate space, and it had this huge old mirror that covered almost the entire wall above the sink. The mirror always creeped me out. It had these weird dark smudges in the corners that no amount of scrubbing could get rid of, and sometimes it felt like it was watching me. One night I stayed up late cramming for an exam. It was around 2 a.m. and I was completely alone. The apartment was dead silent, except for the occasional creak of the floorboards. I decided to take a break and went to the bathroom to splash some water on my face. As I looked up into the mirror, something felt off. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it, but then I realized my reflection wasn't moving. I blinked, but my reflection didn't blink back. It just stood there, staring at me, with this faint, almost imperceptible grin. I froze. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Slowly, I lifted my hand and waved. My reflection didn't move. It just kept smiling, wider now, like it was enjoying my fear. And then it moved. Not like me. Its movements were jerky, unnatural. It tilted its head to the side, almost like it was curious. And then, in a voice that sounded exactly like mine but distorted, it said, "You shouldn't be here." I don't know how I managed to move, but I ran. I slammed the bathroom door shut and stood there, shaking, trying to convince myself I was hallucinating. But then I heard it. A soft tapping. It was coming from the other side of the bathroom door. Tap, tap, tap. Oh, and then my own voice whispered, "Let me out." I grabbed my keys and ran out of the apartment, barefoot and terrified. I didn't stop until I was outside, standing in the freezing cold. I ended up crashing on a friend's couch that night and begged the landlord to let me move out the next day. I still don't know what happened that night. I haven't looked into a mirror the same way since. So, if you ever catch your reflection acting a little too independent, don't stick around to find out why. Story 2. Today's story is for anyone who loves road trips. But fair warning. After this, you might think twice about taking those quiet back roads at night. Grab a drink, sit back, and let me tell you about the road that wouldn't let me leave. This happened about a year ago. I was driving back home after visiting a friend who lived a few towns over. It was late, maybe midnight, and I was tired, so I decided to take a shortcut through some back roads. You know, the kind with no streetlights, barely any signs, and trees on both sides that seem to close in on you? Yeah, those. At first, it was fine. The road was empty and my GPS was working perfectly. But then, out of nowhere, my GPS froze. It wouldn't reroute, wouldn't even show where I was anymore. I thought, no big deal, I'll just follow the road. It's a straight shot, right? Spoiler, it wasn't. After driving for about 20 minutes, I realized I hadn't seen a single turnoff or landmark. Just the same stretch of road, over and over again. Trees, asphalt, trees, asphalt. It felt like I was going in circles, but there was no way I could have made a loop. I started to get that gnawing feeling in my gut like something was really, really wrong. That's when I saw it. A figure standing on the side of the road. It was too dark to see much, but I could make out that it was tall, thin, and definitely not moving. I slowed down a bit, thinking maybe they needed help. But as soon as my headlights hit them, they stepped back into the trees. No sound, no movement, just gone. I tried to shake it off and kept driving. A few minutes later, I saw another figure, or maybe the same one, standing on the shoulder. This time, I didn't slow down. I just kept my eyes on the road and gripped the steering wheel like my life depended on it. Here's where it gets worse. After what felt like forever, I finally saw a road sign up ahead. I almost cried from relief, but when I got closer, I realized the sign was for a road I'd already passed earlier. Somehow, I was back where I started. I pulled over, trying not to panic, and decided to call my friend for help. No signal, of course. At that point, I was on the verge of tears. I decided to keep driving, hoping that if I just stayed on the road long enough, I'd eventually find my way out. After another 30 minutes of the same endless trees, I saw headlights behind me. A car. Finally, I wasn't alone. I slowed down a bit, hoping they'd catch up so I wouldn't feel so isolated. But no matter how much I slowed, the car stayed the same distance behind me. When I sped up, it sped up, and then it happened. I glanced in my rearview mirror and the headlights were gone. Just like that. No sound, no turnoff. They could have taken nothing. I don't know how, but eventually, I made it out. The trees started thinning, and I saw a gas station up ahead. I pulled in and practically fell out of the car. The attendant must have thought I was insane because I begged him to tell me where I was. He looked confused and said, "You're on Route 37, but this station's been closed for hours. How'd you get here?" I didn't stick around to explain. I got back in the car and drove straight home, staying on main roads no matter how much longer it took. To this day, I have no idea what happened on that road. Was it a glitch in my GPS, a trick of the mind, or something else? All I know is I'm never taking a shortcut again.